A burgeoning lexicon festoons an uncomely facade. Indubitably. Hi friends, my name is Elizabeth, and today we are talking about vocabulary. Words. You know, maybe it sounds boring, but we're writers, so you think hopefully it doesn't sound boring. Most times when you look up how to expand your vocabulary, the first thing you find on the internet is to read. Read more. And you should absolutely do that. Reading is the best way to just naturally expand your vocabulary for everyone, but especially for writers. Because it's just like reading helps you get familiar with good storytelling techniques, like via osmosis, just the absorbing of the words. It's pretty much the same thing with your vocabulary. Reading just naturally expands your vocabulary. It just happens over time the more you read. And you can help it along by taking the time to highlight and look up unfamiliar words. But I wanted to give you some ideas on how to expand your vocabulary you might not find on just general website lists of what to do. So here are 7 unique ways to expand your vocabulary so that you can write more original and engaging fiction. Not just to help you write sentences like the one I said at the start of this video, because that was nonsense. Don't do that. I mean, you could do that, but then nobody would read your work. Use your new vocabulary for good and not evil. Here we go. Tip number 1. Google lists of interesting verbs. As a writer, verbs are your best friend. Side note, the gas company is back outside and they're digging. So I don't know if you can hear them. I can't tell them to stop. They don't ask me anyway. I mean, they just start digging, whether you want them to or not. That's what the gas companies do. Anyway, you can always elevate muddied, cliche, or boring writing simply by switching out your verbs. Strong verbs also lessen your need to rely on adjectives and adverbs, which can slow down your prose and make your writing feel kind of clunky or overly flowery. Purple. Verbs, you need verbs, and the best way to find new verbs, fun verbs, is to simply Google lists of them. If you wanted to be an overachiever about it, you could make flashcards of your new verbs to help you learn their definitions. But you know, I don't know, you do you. If that's fun for you, do it. You'll definitely grow your vocabulary. I don't know if it's fun for me, but maybe, we could give it a go. An example verb list online will typically give you a familiar overused verb like walk, and then give you examples of more interesting choices like saunter, skip, creep, trot, plod, amble, tramp. Or you can also find lists of fun verbs, some that you'll know but never think to use because they're a little bit more obscure, and some you won't know at all. It's just a fun way to stretch your brain a little, and maybe tuck a new verb into your back pocket for the next time you're writing. Tip number 2. Google lists of old-fashioned or lost words. Similar to tip number 1, but instead of verbs, these can be any type of unique words. Adjectives, nouns, exclamations, colloquialisms. Colloquialisms. Just anything. For example, bibble, to eat or drink noisily. Haley bibbles her soup in order to purposefully upset her stepmother. Ensorcelle, to bewitch or enchant someone. The teacher ensorcelled her student. The teacher ensorcelled her students with multicolored flames. Putting words into sentences is a fun way to practice using them, and it also helps you remember them for the future. Tip number 3. Google lists of words associated with different hobbies or professions or jargon. I recognize that so far all of these are using Google. That is just my search engine of choice, but you could Bing words associated with different hobbies, professions, or jargon. You could Yahoo them. You could ask Jeeves. Any way you do it, look up words associated with fishing, medicine, cycling, gardening, architecture, fashion, just anything. Anything. Truly anything. There's a whole world of words out there that you've never heard of just because you're not in that field. And don't tie yourself to looking up things that you're currently writing about. Obviously you can do that, but if you're only looking up hospitals because your main character works at a hospital and you want to find words that go along with working in a hospital, you might be missing out because you have no idea what ideas might spark if you look up words associated with gifts or castles or hunting or Morocco or anything. Just anything. You can go down a rabbit hole doing this. For example, you might look up words associated with architecture and then words associated with corbels and then words associated with crow, since corbels come from the French word for crow because of their beak-like shape. You just never know where this would take you. It is very fun. Tip number 4. Buy old vocabulary school books from used bookstores or from the internet. I love old school books because you get to see all these squiggles and doodles and highlights from the kids who used them. There's a whole story inside each one. I especially love when you get an old library book with that little tag still in the front that tells you who checked it out and when. I love it. Anyway, school books are an excellent way to expand your vocabulary. For obvious reasons. I was originally thinking vocab books, but you can really do any subject. I actually still think I might have a couple of my vocab books from my middle school days. I do. This one has been vandalized, and there are definitely words in here that I don't know off the top of my head. I don't remember their definitions. Sham, fake or not genuine. Berserk, violently or destructively engaged. enraged. Pantomime, a play or story performed without words by actors using only gestures. Exalt, to make high in rank, power, character, or quality. To fill with pride, joy, or noble feeling. Fun times. But if you're not a pack rat / hoarder like me, then used bookstores are your best bet. They almost always have an old textbook section for like way cheap because nobody wants old school books. Not like updated, currently being used school books because those are like, you get richer than gold if you have them. I'm talking like 70s textbooks that don't even know what the internet is. I got one here, 1970s. No, this is from the 1880s. You don't have to go this old, but I like old books, so I have it. This is an arithmetic book, and all of the word problems are about tons of coal and bales of hay and acres of land. Everything that a Victorian schoolchild needs to know. And it's very fun. I promise. I promise. Tip number 5. Look up word association lists. These are usually for like journaling or self-care therapy type of things, but it's actually really interesting to do for writers because the lists are usually made of distinct but familiar words, like words that you might just not carry around off the top of your head. And it's always good to be reminded of words like that to tuck into your writing. Reading through lists of words like that really just allows you to kind of hold those words closer to the forefront of your mind. And you know, that's good to do. That's how you expand your vocabulary. You could also follow through with the exercise and write lists of words that you associate with each word. Could be half self-care, half expanding your vocabulary. The lists probably include words like tackle, luxury, discipline, monk, bold, sorry, ball, color, battery, advice, study, chief, moon, just words, you know, words. Tip number 6, play word games. Now, this is on some lists of how to expand your vocabulary. It's not the first list to have it, is this one. This is not the first. But I've got some thoughts. Number 1 thought is that crosswords, a word puzzle that is often suggested, always fill me with rage, so I don't suggest them. I don't like them. I literally never even know like one of the answers. And the clues are usually ridiculous and unhelpful. Like the clue will literally just be cookie. And then the answer will be Oreo. And I'm like, cookie? That's all I get? How do I even know that you wanted a brand of cookie? What if I was thinking bake, or dunk, or milk, or snap, or any other 4-letter word that could be associated with cookie? How am I supposed to deduce that the puzzle wants a brand name? And when you're faced with a whole puzzle of clues like that, I just end up feeling sad and stupid and definitely not like I'm expanding my vocabulary. So I do not recommend crosswords. Unless you love them, and then, you know, go for it. You could also play games like Scrabble or Words with Friends, which I do sometimes enjoy, but I also think that they're kind of hard to use to expand your vocabulary because you are in charge of the words that you make. It's just you, your mind, and the letters. So you're always pretty much just using words that you already know because those are the words that come to you. You know, not much expansion is happening. Not a whole lot of new word inspiration, unless the person that you're playing against is like a very highly skilled and has a much broader vocabulary than you do. And then you'll always lose and you'll be sad. So maybe I don't recommend those. But I do recommend word search puzzles. Now you might think that those are just for children, and maybe they are, but I don't know. They don't fill me with rage, and they give you access to interesting words and familiar words to bring to the forefront of your mind. It's similar to the word association words, just, you know, words, just a pile of words. And it's also similar to like jargon words, because a lot of times word search puzzles are themed. So it'll be like, this is a word search puzzle about construction words or bridge words, you know? And then you're like, oh yeah, I know these words. They're fun, spicy new words. Not just for children. Tip number 7. Practice your new vocabulary by taking a paragraph of description from your novel and switching out familiar words with obscure or uncommon words. You could also do this with paragraphs from books or magazines. Or the newspaper. Take a boring blah sentence and make it shine with your new words. Try a different combination of words until you feel like each sentence stands out. You could also practice by taking a paragraph of description from your novel and try to write it using words that only start with the letter A or that don't include the letter E. Just practice revising sentences to include more interesting phrasing and vocabulary. And that's it. That's all I got. I mean, you know, read. You gotta read.